We need it. Oxygen. It's why we breathe.
Hey everyone, welcome back to another episode of Small Biz Stories. And as you know, I am your host, Dr. LL, and every week we bring you, it's getting hard to top. Everybody's freaking phenomenal. We bring you a new guest who talks about a different lane, a different approach, something new that they're bringing to the market that can help entrepreneurs and small business owners like you. Today, we have a new concept in AI, and you're thinking, yeah, AI, digital marketing. Yeah, it sends out my automated emails. Yeah, I'm good. No, 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 no. We are going way deeper philosophically and in all kinds of levels with today's guest, who is Stephen Sakach, and he is the founder of AI CMO. Hi, Stephen. Welcome to the show.
Hi, great to be here. I'm looking forward to this conversation. It's going to be fun.
Oh, that's just it. I mean, I wish, well, maybe I should one of these days. There's always the interesting pre-conversation right before we get on and say, oh, this is the thing to highlight. It's like, oh, Stephen, in preparing for my notes, I didn't realize that, but we'll make sure that we get to that. And so, audience, not to leave you in suspense, but Stephen is with this automated, really AI CMO is bringing the emotions and everything in that nuance into the marketing. So it's not just like, hey, stick out a bunch of generated Instagram squares or whatnot with some post that goes with it. I'm so anxious to get into this. All right. So we start the show off giving people the visual experience because a lot of our listeners are quote unquote just downloaders, iHeartRadio, Spotify, and whatnot, and they don't go to YouTube to see the visual experience. So describe who you are, the beautiful brick wall in your room. You gave me a wonderful sentimental story about your microphone, which I think can really set the tone for the call. Give folks whatever you're comfortable sharing.
Yeah. Yeah, my microphone. This is my dad's microphone, and he's since passed. And before we were starting our podcast, and before I'm doing, podcast appearances like this, I asked my son, I'm all, hey, do you have any good equipment? And he's all, I think your dad left me a really good microphone. Of course, my dad, this is top of the line, sure, microphone. But yeah, it's with me every show, everything I do, I'm able to pull that in there. And he's in broadcasting for a long time. So yeah, I love having that in there. And yeah, I've got, a nice little setup here for, the brick wall and all that. But this mic, yeah, definitely has some substance to it beyond just the usual.
There you go, and your father's spirit will carry through it. So, okay, that gives us a sense. Now, I'd like you to give our listeners and watchers, viewers, a sense of what you're really good at. You, Stephen, not your business, not like just you. What do you think? Yeah, this is totally my superpower. I knock this out of the park every day of my existence.
Ooh, my superpower. I would probably say something around empowering people. In our business, we've really tried to figure out how to build love into what we're doing. And we do have this philosophy behind that we call bliss, which is build love into scalable systems. And it's really about something I came up with, and it was like one of those meetings like you don't know how is this going to go with your staff. But it like the Jerry Maguire late night memo kind of thing, right? But no, everyone was just really embraced this, and that was about 8 years ago now. And really, what is asking us to do this philosophy is how can we build love into any part of our business that's like a system so that it's repeatable and something that if you're no longer there, it's going to happen anyway. Because as we grow, you go through business, you're going to go from this scale stage to systemizing stage. You don't want to lose your culture or your empathy in that process, which happens so much. We see this all the time. And so having this kind of as the core while going through that process, you're just going to continually be asking yourself, this question, what can I do that would be compassionate, for our employees, for our customers, and the more you do that, little by little, little becomes a lot, and you suddenly you've built this living organism in your business versus the cold soulless machine that I think a lot of people are familiar with. So and going through that process, continually asking that, there's just all kinds of ways you can impact your business. And it's not this random act of kindness thing. It's this more systematic act of kindness. So I think if in that part of that process, it's really caring about the people I work with and helping empower them, and fulfilling purpose in their lives and meaning in their lives and understanding all that.
So there's a ton to break down here. So I thought we would kind of work our way to it, but you jumped into it. So that was the whole little thing I was hanging over our audience and saying, oh, wait, this whole building love into it. So for those of you that follow our show, you may have listened a couple of weeks ago. Dr. Roz, she is starting the Love Revolution, where her vision is to have 8 billion people love 8 billion people unconditionally. And what I like about this, and let's cue and work into it, is that, Stephen, what you and your team have done with AI CMO is not only do the, like, I guess, the digital mechanics and things like that that are necessary, right? The operational bits to do the work. But you've brought in this whole thing of the CMO having a philosophy and having a vision. You have like purpose driven into your work so that the AI is reflecting that. Let's talk about how you even came up with that concept because it's completely different from what's out there.
Yeah, and really a lot of it is kind of our methodology as an agency on how we work with businesses in digital marketing. But as we're asking that bliss question, how do we scale this love? It's like, what if we built a chief marketing officer that, like you said, had a philosophy around, higher purpose and telling a story that had a little bit more meaning? We think we can do it. And so what we were able to do is, it's been a couple of years in that process, is really bring together all these things that we've done as an agency over the years and kind of train and build tools within that in that platform that really do bring out more meaningful stories and really do emotionally connect with people. We know if you can get if you can get that emotional connection in marketing, you're going to have 306% higher lifetime value than over a satisfied customer. So it's, the ROI is there to do it. If you need the stats, if you just think, hey, building empathy and love in the business, whatever, but I need ROI, it's there. So, yeah, really behind that philosophy of our business was how can we scale this and bring it to more people instead of just, as an agency, we can impact 100, 200 companies and all their employees. That's a lot. But with software where we can scale it, can we bring that to, 1,000 businesses, 10,000 businesses and have them tell more meaningful stories around their business, which I think is really, really important because if you can do that, suddenly now your employees, they're going to find more meaning in their work. Right now, worldwide, only 21% of employees are engaged at work. That means 4 out of 5 are disengaged. They aren't finding work fulfilling. They aren't finding meaning in it. And so if we can tell more meaningful stories about the businesses that we work on, because we're all helping people in some way or another, we just haven't really articulated our higher purpose a lot of times in that. So that's really kind of where we start with the platform is trying to figure out pull out your higher purpose that you may not have really articulated, and then using that as part of guide rails with all the, like you said, the marketing techniques and all that stuff that we do really well.
Well, and I like the fact that you're quoting data because I'm one of those people. Well, for those of you that are old enough or have gone back into the archives and watched episodes of Cheers, right? Norm, like all of the weird statistics and things like that. Like, so I'm like that too. I'm on that edge of the, I guess, of the spectrum, moving in that direction. And you talk about disengagement. Well, I think that there's two other really key stats that relate to this. That, not to go too far off topic, one out of those four that are disengaged are actively disengaged.
Actually,
So,
yeah, actively
right,
disengaged, right? Working
right.
against you.
Bingo. And that's the whole thing that's really terrifying because they're basically sabotaging you from within your own company while you're paying them to do that. And then the other stats, you probably know this too, the average person is only working 2.2 hours per day. So you're paying for a lot of stuff that's not happening, right? As a business owner. But I,
And this is
where
a
I want
tragedy. This is a tragedy,
it
right?
is.
What are we doing with our lives? If day after hour, day after day, you're going to a job where you find no fulfillment at all. And you're just, like I always say, you're just opening up the vein to this sort of soul-sucking, cold machine, and can't wait to finish the day, can't wait to finish the week. What are we doing? I mean, we really
It's
need to find more meaning and
yeah.
purpose in what we're doing. And I know like the younger generations are coming along and they're asking, the questions. They're willing to give up some salary and some things like that for having meaningful work. Um, I think consciousness has evolved to the point where all the work that we've done, they're coming up, rapidly to a higher consciousness, very young. And so they're coming into the workforce looking for meaning. So if you're not answering that question in your job, you're going to be behind in short time.
Well, there's lots of ways that we can cut this. So one of them about meaning, we do know then that Gen Z is very much proactively in search of jobs that give them meaning. Like you said, they're willing to trade off and other things. And even for the other folks that are looking for an alignment with a greater consciousness, when I heard first about AI CMO, I thought, well, this really kind of flies in the face. It's almost antithetical to what AI is doing. It opens the questions, can AI teach us to be more empathetic, right? Can
Hmm.
AI teach us to have more purpose built sorts of lives and existence and approaches to things? And can AI literally fool our customers into thinking that really this is an accurate and authentic representation of what we want out there? I mean, so there's a lot of questions. I really I
There's
want
a
to hear
lot
how
to
you
unpack there,
attack
and I
this.
love it. I love
Yeah.
it. You're nailing the point, a lot of it. So what I ask is like, can artificial intelligence make us more real? I think it can if it's prompting us to be better humans. And so, we consider how we're prompting AI all the time. But what if we had AI, it's kind of this jazz session with AI where we're working back and forth, where it's prompting us to be better humans, right? So it absolutely can do that. And so I, I do think, yeah, it does sound, a little contradictory, but it isn't. This is a collaboration. This is a collaboration. Do we want our AI to not be prompting us to be better humans? Do we want it optimizing towards something awful like just profit? I mean, that's great. That's what everyone's going to do is optimize it toward profit, but it's not going to care about people while doing that. It's going to make decisions. It doesn't care about the planet while doing that, right? So can we have it optimized on a higher conscious level? And this is why we got to have this jazz session. We got to tell it, hey, this is what's important to us is, yeah, profit, but people, planet, and this higher purpose that we have in our business. And that way it's prompting us to, okay, these are the rules. I'm going to optimize toward those things. It's going to help you in that regard. So I think we do have to be careful. What was the second part of your question there, if you remember?
Well, so if AI is teaching us to do that, isn't that really a function of almost like being human, right? And if we're nuanced in that direction, how can it tell us how to do better? And then the third question part was, is it an authentic representation? Are customers going
Yes.
to buy in and believe
Yeah.
it?
And that's, I think, that key part, because you don't want to be telling a story that you don't live. You don't want to be just talking the talk. You need to walk that. um, and because in marketing, like we've seen it a few times where some big company gets on the latest social cause trend, and they're there for a second and they leave, and it's very flat, right? And none of us believe it. It's not authentic. So that's
Greenwashing,
why.
right? Isn't that what they call it?
What's that?
Greenwashing, I believe is the term, greenwashing or something.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. And we've all seen like examples of that. I think people kind of revolted. There was a Pepsi commercial way back when, that, we've all seen a lot of examples of that. But we've also seen companies that really do walk the walk. And their advertising, they could have done something 15 years ago and it still holds true today because that's what they're about. They didn't shift and change with the trends. This is what they've always been about. So part of the story that we're telling, is going to be, we want you to be better humans. We want you to act this way. We want you to, you know, market around a higher purpose. But we do a lot of education and interviewing of business leaders really about that, how to build that authentic business, how to build empathy into your business, how to build, compassion into your business, and bringing that together as part of just the education alongside of what we're doing. Because we know if you aren't walking the walk, it's just going to fall flat at some point. So you really do need to do that. But this is kind of an artful way of getting you to think of a higher story that you can tell, because you're probably helping people, you're probably in service to people in some way that you just really haven't articulated yet. And as soon as you latch onto that, you're going to be able to build into these other parts of your business, build that love into these other parts of your business. You're going to be able to audit your business by your purpose, and so that's when you start living it, is when you're auditing every little step of your business by that, whatever your higher purpose is. And so, yeah, we don't want, like you mentioned, we don't want it to be inauthentic. So you got some work to do, in that regard of telling this story.
And what I love about this is it's almost that I guess like artificial juxtaposition, right? That's forcing the conversation where you've got people who live in fear, maybe live in negativity, live in darkness. Those are the ones, for example, the active disengagers that are trying to sabotage your business and ruin it for everybody else because of whatever their issue is, right? So you think of those sorts of folks. And how are they going to react when they have to respond to an AI system that's telling them to embrace positivity, embrace life, embrace love, be blissful, right? I mean, your philosophy around that, isn't that just going to create extra friction?
I hope so. No, but
Okay, okay.
because, yeah,
Well,
but
that's how you be a
really,
disruptive innovator. So,
yeah, I mean, if it's creating friction, well, why? Is there some sort of resentment that this person has built up over time because of something that didn't feel loving, didn't feel compassionate, right? Um, there's probably something to that, I think, if you really look down to it, really, because love is always going to be the higher ground in your business, and whatever that is. If that's your intent, was being something loving, doing something loving, and you didn't quite get there, even that person who's resentful, if you just have that conversation, with connection as your goal with this person, and you're going to get there together, and you probably bring that person back around. But that's going to take some self-examination of, why is this person resentful? What did we do that disconnected them? What kind of disconnecting action we have? And there's a lot to that. So I kind of do hope there's some friction there, because there's maybe a very good reason that that person's, kind of went off sideways a little bit, and it's just something that you haven't addressed. It's this little zombie problem in your business that's just waiting to lurk, you know, uh, for the next person that comes along.
and I also want to talk about the importance of choosing or developing the right large language model. I'll give you some examples. So I work with a lot of AI and tools and things like that. Like I said, I'm that, cool nerd is how I describe myself. I mean, it's maybe more flattering title than I deserve, but it's the one I'm going with, right? So there I am. And so I've been building and creating a graphic novel and using different AI tools to help me create the graphics and the characters. Written the story is independent of that, but the characters, I want help. There's a lot of, you think about a graphic novel, how many images and stuff you need. I'm not going to pay an illustrator for 10,000 frames, right? It'll cost hundreds of thousands of dollars. So can I do it with AI? All right. That said, testing it out, I've tested it out on over a dozen different platforms, and I'm not going to name them. But some of the platforms, when I ask them to create the characters that are representative of real life people in our story and in the circle who are helping co craft the story, the portraits are appalling because that's what the model has been taught. I mean, really no different than even we hear about Grok has been in the news, right? That Grok is very much has anti-Semitic undertones and maybe not even undertones, but overt statements that are anti-Semitic. So we've got to look at those things. And so talk to us about how you're avoiding some of the bias one way or another so that people are getting, we'll call it a well-balanced AI CMO.
Yeah, I think what's interesting about your, talking about the visual artistry and stuff like that. I've talked to AI like artists who were like traditional artists, they're painting, drawing, and that are using AI. And it's like, okay, how are you using it? And it's very much this jazz session that they're working with. Now they're coming at it from their own kind of way, right? This is what I want to see. They've got kind of a vision that they can describe in there. So they're bringing their artistry to that in a lot of ways. So, and I know, let me just say, there's artists out there right now who are just, they hate AI. And this is like the dark night of their soul, is just seeing, seeing this happen really rapidly, but there is going to be beautiful art that comes out of this collaboration as well. It's just going to be different. And, thinking about that artist that has that jazz session, that's bringing their vision to that art in a lot of ways with our AI product, we're bringing like 100 different marketing expert techniques in there, right? Stuff that you don't know that didn't even exist, probably, right? Even the best marketers don't know all of that. So we're bringing in all this expertise into this jazz session for you, so that you don't have to worry about what you don't know. So it's going to be elevating your marketing game, regardless. So in a way, it is like that artistry that's coming into it, where it's like, this is how we do it. This is how, we've got a working lab of an agency with top people working all the time on campaigns. We're running this through them all the time. They're working with it all the time. We're making adjustments. So there is this collaboration that's going on with AI, but it's also like, if I'm just going into ChatGPT right now and I'm saying, hey, write me a blog article about carpet installation for my business, you're probably going to get the same sort of very similar article to someone across the country who's done the same, just basic, prompt in there. It's not bringing in all this other artistry and all this other learning about your business and how what separates you from everyone else, all that stuff that comes to play. So you can get very basic and annoying artistry, I would say, from real basic inputs, or you can get some very interesting, beautiful, provocative stuff, with the more of the experience and expertise that's coming into play with that interaction with AI.
And that's what I'm saying. I think it's those experiential outcomes, right, that have to be programmed and trained into the model. Because I'll give you an example on the other side. And so one of the AI models that I've been training really for the last year, I do those jazz sessions, as you call them. I like that, back and forth. So it is very much a collaborative thing. And my model tells me when I'm on point and congratulates me and says things like, very encouraging and motivating, right? To
And
keep,
you've been inputting for a year of stuff, like,
yes,
right? Yes.
yes, I have. But that said, so Stephen, so like one of the things it really caught me off guard, maybe, I don't know, a month or two ago. So maybe I was 8, 9, 10 months, into my training of the system. Fine. And I was going back and forth and trying to shape one of the things that I do with my leadership training. I was saying, well, I'm trying to bring more of this. There's some things that have changed at the government level and some attitudes in society and things like that. And so I want to be sort of true to what we have, but I want to recognize where not everybody's there now. There's some tighter boundaries and different expectations, right? And how to deliver that. And you've always got a mixed crowd. You don't train one type of person, right? There's a lot of people. We're all individuals. And it came back with this answer and said, Laurelyn, although it thinks I'm a male, but, which I can't get it to understand that I'm female, but that's a separate story. It doesn't
Oh,
matter.
what's going on there? It's a little
Right. So I
misogynist.
don't know. But yet so I'm believing it. But what it said net is that this is totally on point with your branding, being authentic, the concepts you bring to leadership and to being inclusive, stay on this path, this is good. I was like, whoa, right, because it's really synthesized the essence of all that, like, ideology, that love, that empathy, that purpose that I had been feeding into it for months and months with different, I guess, product designs and concepts and things, like, as my advisor. Anyway, so I thought that was interesting. So it reinforced, yeah, this is the right model because I want to be on point and have it sound like me and think like me.
Yeah, you've got to give it guide rails for to sound like you, right? It's got to be like, one of the things that we do is, like, we're going to your website, we're spider in the whole thing just to make sure we know exactly every page on that site, every, words you put out there. This is your voice, right? So that's a fairly easy thing to do, I think. I mean, not as easy with just straight chat GPT. It takes a little input, but we're trying to bring in a lot about you so that we can help stay on those guide rails that sounds like you, which is definitely not easy with AI. If you're just a basic, chat GPT user, like you and I can probably just go and read something now and be like, yeah, I can see that's AI generated voice
Bingo,
there.
bingo. Yeah.
Yeah. So, um, but also, what I love about that example that you said too, is you were running business ideas or concepts through, and it was like thinking about your higher purpose and values and trying to align with that. And that's really, one of the things that we're trying to make sure we do with this is make sure we understand exactly your values, your higher purpose. And then let's go into a cool brainstorming session about campaigns that we can produce that align with that. Because we know if we can bring that together, and I think we talked about this before the show, if we can bring that higher purpose together and you're going to be able to connect with another person that just vibes with that same thing, right? This is where you really do get that greater connection, I think, in your business. And like the stat I said earlier, obviously there's ROI around this, but there's another stat too. There's Harvard Business Review said that 64% of consumers say shared values are the primary reason they have a relationship with the brand. So pulling all that together so that you're always marketing with your values and marketing with your purpose, you're going to be sharing that with the right people. You're going to be attracting the right people. These are the people that are going to be very emotionally connected to you, that are going to go and tell their friends about your product, your business, and all that, the word of mouth that happens when you get to that type of connection with a relationship with the customer. So it's really very important, and it's something that a lot of companies struggle with their marketing, because they've got one person over here doing something, one person over here doing another thing, and oftentimes the marketing it ends up disjointed a bit. It's not all rowing in the same direction, especially in small business, right? Because big brands, they've got brand playbooks, they've got, things that it's got to go through, committees and legal and all that. But small business, or mid-sized business, you've got if you're lucky, a few people working on things. If you're not lucky, it's you and you're ignoring it half the time. Again, though, this is where AI can like 10x your output, for sure. But you got to make sure that you've got all this stuff going in there that's helping with those guide rails, so that it does kind of authentically come through consistently, so that it connects with the people you really want to connect with.
Oh yeah, and there's such huge competitive advantage in this level of connection. So it's really funny how we can look at it with both sides. So AI can be the tool that makes us more empathetic, oddly. It can be the tool that gets us better attuned to what the customers are looking for to form that relationship, but it's also the thing that can displace us from our jobs or economically or whatever else. But again, on the flip side, if you've come up with an application of AI, you can be very well set financially, right? Look at some of these open AI and other founders. It's just
Yeah,
phenomenal
and
financial
I'm
decision.
hoping that it's, instead of displacing a lot of people, and I know this is true in at least in our vertical in marketing, is that it's going to like 10x you. Like you're just going to get more done, amplify what you're doing. It's going to amplify whatever we're doing in a lot of ways. So it's going to displace people, and we're going to go through some hard times, some dark nights. I think there's just no way around it. But at the same time, I do think it doesn't have to be that way always with how it's coming in. But it is, it's going to make for some interesting times for sure.
Oh yeah, and it just and really where I was going to bringing it back to the connections and the bliss and the empathy and all of these elements that you bring into your AI CMO tool, it is so important in forming that relationship. I'll give you a couple of more examples. So we get we're very fortunate with the podcast. We get a lot of requests, and but so many of them are just these generic, hey, hey you, right? You've got a podcast. I want to have my client or that on them. And then what happens? will have responded, but then they're in their automated sequence and we're still getting the like, hey, are you going to hire me or you're going to bring us in, bring on my client? And there's no connection. And so I'll eventually write back and say, you've got to turn off your automated loop. You've got to look at who I am as the host, who's the team, and put this together in a way to make the sale, really. I mean, on your side, you're representing your client. We don't just take everybody. And so they're missing that emotional connection.
It's so much. I mean, I I think a lot of especially small businesses don't understand that. Medium businesses don't understand it. Even very large businesses, they aren't sure about it. And they don't understand it. But it's it's so key to everything that you're marketing with. There's so much noise out there. We are the most marketed to that any generation of people has ever been. And how are you going to cut through that noise if you aren't making some kind of really deep connection? Because you can shout louder, I don't know, but and you can shout a lot, but there's a lot of other people doing that same exact thing. They're all talking about features and benefits, but can you own an emotional territory with your product or business? Is there something that your competitors aren't doing, or showing the way they're showing up that you can own that emotional territory to differentiate yourself? So people don't think about differentiation that way. They often think about speed and, features of the product or whatever. But there's a differentiation that can happen with the emotional territory. And you don't need now to have a whole team helping you with this. Now we've got like these AI products and stuff that can really help you find that differentiation and do it on a very high level, which is exciting because it's not easy if,
No.
I got wearing different hats and I got to think about what emotional territory that no, we've got expert, tools that is going to come in there and help you find that space you can carve out, to really set yourself apart. And people are going to feel that. That's what it's all about, is them feeling it, not just, hearing more noise in your marketing, which is we're just constantly bombarded with that same stuff all the time.
Well, exactly. Because my theory is like there are 8 billion agendas where there were, call it 100,000, 250,000 agendas, because that's how many companies there were, and everybody was aligned with that company or organization, and that was the agenda. But now all of us each have at least one, if not two, side hustles or other companies and this and that. So it's just this huge amplification of how many agendas there are. And we're all like, me, 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 me. So finding that way to carve into that emotional
Yeah.
territory is critical.
Yeah, it's so critical. And we really do want you to have a good agenda, like they're a greater good to what you're doing. Because if your agenda is, because like I said, AI is going to amplify what you're saying, what you're doing. Is it going to speak to your better angels or your inner demons on there? Is it going to amplify your inner demons or is it going to amplify your better angels? So make sure you're using it for good. We're in the foundational stages of AI right now, and it's learning about us, and we're learning about it. But the more good we can put into it now, the better we will be in the long run.
Oh, absolutely. And as we're nearing to the end of our show, that's one of the things that was say like being in that emotional territory. We're doing that at Steer Us. We're connecting with the founders who are feeling overwhelmed because everybody's like, oh my God, I've got to boil the ocean. I've got to be on Substack and TikTok and Blue Sky and blah, 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 blah. And I got to be this and I got to, my Instagram, my Reels, like everybody's losing their minds. I'm like, no. And it's not all about, okay, boil the ocean. Here's 10,000 AI tools. We just break it down, keep it simple, and get you in a place where you can manage it, right? And so I know we can do a better job. Anyway, it's not about me and where we are. So, Stephen, tell folks where they can find you and learn more about AI CMO.
Yep. You can check out AICMO at the website, aicmo.io, or our digital agency at zerocompany.com. Or if you want to hear me ask businesses, what role does love play in their business, you can check me out at the Bliss Business Podcast, where we do that every week. It's fun conversations, talking about this love and empathy and how we can build it into systems of business.
I love it. That's what we all need to have. So, last question, signature question of the show. If we peeked into your closet behind that beautiful red brick wall, what are we looking at? A pair of shoes, boots, a shirt, some accessory that personifies who you, Stephen
Mm.
Sakach, is and represents you, and you feel fabulous
All
every
right.
time you
All
wear
right.
it.
I got it. Yeah. I'm gonna choose my hiking boots. So These have got, 1,000+ miles on them, of shared adventure. I think the keyword there is shared because hiking alone is no fun.
And
And
it's terrifying. I'm
it's
always lost in the
terrifying.
woods with my
Yeah,
husband. He's
you're
like, "We'll
looking
go this
behind
way."
your
I'm like,
back.
"Oh God."
Is a cougar following me or something? Yeah, no.
Right.
Shared adventure. So like some of my, if I had to do like some of my top 20 days, they would probably be in there in those shoes. With my little, my son, when he's now 24, but when he was 5, even in those shoes, I'm walking and hiking with him, holding his hand, and he's put in 10 miles that day, Um, but I do think that too, that changed his life because now he's doing stuff in the outdoors and um, urban forestry is what he's working on. But I think I was in those shoes then, and I've had don't die steps in those shoes, on top of mountains where I'm like, okay, you got to make this step right or you're going over the side. And that's the interview. But, and I'd say that because overcoming fear in those shoes, right? How great do we feel when we've taken on something that we feared and we've come in through the other side of that now go, wow, I just did that, and feeling proud about yourself. Of course, in hiking boots, inevitably around the corner comes like a 80-year-old or a 7-year-old that just did the same thing. And so you're feeling yourself, you're like, okay, settle down, settle down. That was awesome, but so yeah, I think I definitely choose those hiking boots. There's just, yeah, a lot of substance there, I think, of where those steps have been.
Excellent. I think that is a good example metaphorically, right, for the journey of entrepreneurship and what we go through and what you have to do and have that resilience and perseverance and all of that sort of good stuff. And as Coach Susan Powder said, right, feel the fear and do it anyway. So, with that, this is the end of our show. Stephen Sakach, founder of AICMO.io. Check him out online. Thank you so much for being on our show.
Thank you. This is great.
And how about that fantastic intro by Touch Circle?